Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at @SheKnowsArsenal. Today's show is going to be a live Q&A because let's keep it real. There's not a lot going on. So it's hard to think of new content ideas when nothing is really happening. I cannot wait for the season to start so that I can just go back to doing post-match and stuff like that. This is so difficult, but you guys seem to like the Q&As, so we'll just keep those going. It's not like my shows don't always devolve into some sort of Q&A anyway, but we just, it's fine. It's fine. It is what it is, So there's about 26 of you guys watching. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can go ahead and start getting your questions in there if you want. Just make sure it's obvious that it's a question. I will be touching on Willock, Odegaard, a little bit about Madison as well, Lakanga, and the embarrassing moment, after yesterday's preseason match where Arteta out was already trending. And so we'll talk about that as well. So let's see what you guys are saying. What? Okay, what? Neeks, why are you in here? This is an Arsenal stream. Mr. Austin says, yo. Hey, how are you? Abdul says, wagwan. Sean says, hey, Jess. Hey, how are you? Colin says, last two seasons are what they were. Now we start with a loss at Hibs. Goodness gracious, what is our sentence this season? Sean says, hey, chat room. Abdallah says, people, make sure you pepper the like button, subscribe if you're new. Let's get Jess up to 120 likes for the stream. Thank you, Abdallah. Thank you so much. Mr. SNLO says, bring it on. Neeks, your question is, who impregnant? Who impregnant? Am I missing something? Am I missing something here? What? No glasses. No glasses today. That glare is unbearable. But so long story short, I have very bad vision. So life is very hard when you can't see. So I have my glasses that I prefer to wear, 9 times out of 10, that's what I'm wearing at home. But the glare is just unbearable, Sean says, according to Twitter, we're getting relegated for sure. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Oh, Neeks is saying, who impregnated Will.i.am and how many months pregnant is he? That picture has me rolling. I'm dying. Okay, so I know it's frustrating for some people because it's why aren't you coming into preseason in decent shape? I told you guys yesterday that I thought Kolasinac and Willian looked heavier. But I didn't think it was that bad. And honestly, I thought those pictures of Willian were Photoshop. But I know it's annoying because it's why aren't you coming in shape? But did you actually think he was going to come in any decent shape for us? Do you actually think he cares about us at all? I think Willian is just hoping that somebody is dumb enough to pay his wages and he can just go off into the sunset. But I'm not really shocked that he came in out of shape. and it's just like a joke at this point. Like, let's just hope that somebody takes him on or something happens where he can just move on. But ultimately, like, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if the club was trying to figure out a way not to even, I mean, I would be considering not even registering him if I'm quite honest. Like, we don't have that many spots in the squad, and he's just not needed. It's a huge mistake. It's a huge black mark on Arteta and Edu's CV, in my opinion, bringing in somebody like that on astronomical wages. And now we're unable to shift him. So if he doesn't go, I just wouldn't even register him, to be honest. Like, he came in a shape that literally said, I actually don't give a shit about you, like, at all. I'm not shocked, but I'm not even gonna lie, those pictures had me dying. Like, he looks horrendous. And somebody also needs to maybe tell Aubameyang to do something with his hair, because I'm not feeling whatever he's got going there. It's not working. Yeah. So let's see what you guys are saying. Eddie Longbridge, hey, it's usually past your bedtime, so nice to see you though. Hello, Jess. I think Willian may be depressed. Maybe he's comfort eating. Maybe. Maybe, you know. S says it's disrespectful to all the youngsters who have been training all summer to turn up that out of shape. Yeah, of course it's disrespectful, and it's just so unprofessional, but I don't expect anything more from Willian at all, because the way that he played for us last season just showed me enough about what he thinks about Arsenal, what he thinks about the fans. He actually probably would have been better off just like taking a big dump on my freaking forehead. Like, he actually doesn't care about us at all. So I'm not shocked. We just have to figure out a way to either move him on or just don't register him. Like, you know what I mean? Because he's not going to play for us. Like, he's literally not. And he probably thought that he was going to get a move to Inter Miami. It obviously fell through because his wages were too much, and they have issues already with their DPs, and they're already in issues with the MLS because they're bringing in so many players on wages and all this kind of stuff. So he might have thought that was going through. Honestly, in the MLS, he could probably have come in that kind of shape, and people would have been like, "Oh, look at this guy, he's in shape." But yeah, he's just a joke. Like, you know what I mean? At this point, like, I just can't, Colin says, sorry, I don't know why it's going so slow, you guys. I'm reading your comments, but it's taking forever for them to. Oh, I missed it. Okay. Colin says a lot about the state of our decision makers when MLS headmen have said how much no thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's not like he doesn't really seem like somebody who would be like, if the MLS were going to bring him in, that he would be somebody that other like people would know about and would be buying tickets to go see. So in that regard, I'm just like, I'm not shocked that they looked at his wages and was like, are you joking? Like, the main players in the MLS have been like Zlatan and Carlos Vela and Chicharito and Higuain, and Willian's just not really even on that level, so I don't know why he would want more than what they're making. But enough about him. I mean, those pictures were hilarious, but now I'm like upset that I even brought it up. Actually, I didn't even bring it up. Neeks brought it up. He's one of those that just kind of like throws a bomb there and lets it explode and runs away. Thanks, Neeks. Thanks a lot. Yeah, so let me see if there's some questions in here. Let's see what's going on. Yeah, you guys can go ahead and drop your questions in. No more Willian talk, though, to be honest. Abdallah says, Jess, who are your top 5 ballers of all time? Maximum 2 Arsenal players. You always ask these questions, and it's just so difficult to say. I mean, Ronaldinho's number 1. I don't really think I need to explain that any further. It's so difficult. Like, you said my favorite, Ronaldinho, Vieira. You said only 2 Arsenal players, right? Vieira, Gilberto. So those are my 2 Arsenal players. I I really liked Michael Essien as well. He's one of my favorite players. The last one is just too difficult. The last one, last spot. Give me a second. Let me think about it. You guys, Willian, no more. Okay, Papa Boyle, it says question Odegaard, and this is something that I did want to touch on. Let me just check that off my list. So, word on the street is that Odegaard is back on. Real Madrid, as we know, is I don't want to say financial ruin. I would just say they're in a tough spot and they need to sell players, and some of their more fringe players are, a little vulnerable at the moment. Somebody like Isco and Odegaard is also a part of this list of players that they may look to move on, so that they could, bring some money into the club. They're in a bad situation. So with that, then now it's kind of like, okay, we could go back in and maybe offer them something and he would come, to us. We know that he wants a permanent solution, but I also feel like we could offer him a permanent solution. If we were interested in James Maddison, then we most likely would be able to bring in Odegaard, who I think would cost less. So, yeah, and they're in a bad position. And you think about the difference between the situation that Leicester is in and the situation that Real Madrid is in. Leicester's not in a position where they have to sell Maddison, so they're going to ask us for a lot, like over what he's worth. He's worth about 60, but I don't even think 60 would get it done. It'd be like 65 plus would get it done. Plus, we'd have to give him at least 200 and something grand per week. And he's 24 years old, which isn't a bad age at all, versus if you wanted to bring in somebody like Odegaard, who we already know kind of how he fits in. I do think he had a little bit of a drop off maybe towards the end of the season with us, but it was a loan move. He got injured, so it kind of is what it is, but he would not need that much. I mean, I think he's like on 30 something grand a week or something like that. He's on some crazy like low wages or something. So even if we doubled or tripled it, it would still be less than what we would be paying to bring Maddison in. And then because Real Madrid is in a situation where they absolutely have to sell players, we could offer them something around 40 and probably get it done. So with that being said, it's not that I don't like Odegaard. It's just maybe just the way that the season kind of panned out and how I feel like that person that is in that position has to be able to contribute goals. We don't have enough goals in our team. That front four is just not firing at the moment. We know Bukayo Saka is getting his feet wet in terms of being like a forward. Like, I don't really see him being able to contribute like 15 goals a season. I really don't see it, like not next season, even though I rate him highly, obviously, star boy, right? Then you have like, Smith Rowe. He's somebody who got 7 goals and 7 assists in all competitions. So he could do it, but I'm still thinking like it may be a little bit too early. And then you have somebody like Pepe who will be sharing time with Saka. So that person that we bring in has to be able to contribute like at least 10 goals and 10 assists in the Premier League. And I didn't really get the vibe from Odegaard that he's really that guy that's going to be driving us forward in terms of goals. Like, he's going to find the pass, and he's the perfect player to have with Aubameyang, because he is the type of player that Aubameyang could play off of. But at the same time, can he contribute the amount of goals that we need? I'm not quite sure. But from a deal perspective, I can see us being able to get that done a lot easier than what it would take to get Maddison, which, if quite frankly, if Leicester is willing to sell Yuri Tielemans to Liverpool, they're not going to sell Maddison to us. That's 2 first-team players in your midfield that you would have to recruit and replace. And I just don't see it happening. And it feels like they're more open to letting Tielemans go than letting Maddison go. Shocker. So that's a really hard deal to get done, even though I think he's interested in coming to Arsenal. So, and Odegaard was always our number 1 choice. So if we could get something like that done, I wouldn't be like upset about it. I'm more concerned about the central midfielder that needs to come in that's going to replace Granit Xhaka. This person just has to fit the profile. Odegaard fits it. I think Maddison is a better fit, but the deal is probably better in terms of Odegaard. So we'll see kind of what happens with that. But I can understand why it's not super exciting because we've already seen Odegaard and we've already kind of made decisions, in our own minds, like whether or not this is a good signing. But we also have to take into consideration that it was a very short loan. It was about a 6-month loan in January, and he did have really bright moments, and then he got injured. So we didn't really get to see the best of him, and he's much better and has a higher ceiling than I think people feel like he does. But at the same time, we need a sure thing, so if the club feels like that's their guy, then it is what it is, but yeah, I mean, they both fit the profile. I just think the Odegaard deal might be a little bit easier to get done if they're really desperate to sell. Let's see. Like AMN doesn't exist. Okay, let's see. I just want to make sure so what do you guys think about Odegaard? Would you guys be upset if he came in? I see Hale and Yaya Toure. Is that supposed to be Willick? Tony says, what is ESR's new number 8 or 10? Has to be Martinelli 11, right? I mean, part of me feels like Martinelli should probably wait to get the number 9 from Lacazette when Lacazette goes. I don't see the number 11. You guys, I'm trying to get my charger. Hold on real quick. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure about Martinelli 11. I would feel like he might want to wait for the number 9 for Lacazette to go. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But with Emile Smith-Rowe, I still feel like whoever comes in, whether it's Odegaard or Maddison, will get the number 10. And I think, maybe Smith-Rowe will get the number 8 or something else. But ultimately, all I really care about is him signing the new deal. Let's just get it done. Let's see. Sorry, it's slow. Sean says, what can we do to make sure we don't... Oh, why? What can we do to make sure we don't rely on youngsters that much like last season? Bring in players, pre-prime players, good players that could play in front of them or instead of them or with them. Ultimately, I just feel like players like Saka and ESR, they need better players around them to play with and people that can come in to play over them as well. So the main young player that I'm worried about is Emile Smith-Rowe. I think we're projecting based on, a good 2 or 3 months in the side, and we're projecting we're talking about him as if he's already a player. He is a player. We're talking about him as if he's the finished product, and he's definitely not. And to put that level of stress or, responsibility on a very young kid with injury issues, I think is just a little bit irresponsible. And so even though I think Bukayo can handle it because he's just a little bit further along in his development, he already had his really tough year with us, I think Emile Smith-Rowe is just a little bit shy of that. So I think just bringing in players that are not Willians, but if you bring in like an Odegaard or James Maddison to kind of fill in for Smith-Rowe, and also somebody who doesn't necessarily block his path, because Emile can also play as an 8 or out on the left, then I think it'll just be better, because even though we have less games, I still don't think Smith-Rowe is ready to... It's not just about can he handle it physically, it's does he have the end product necessary to help us get into top 4/Europe in general. I think that's a huge ask for somebody. And if we went into next season with just Emile Smith-Rowe as our main 10, I just could totally see us in January looking for somebody to fill in the gap, because maybe he was injured or, he's just not able to score that amount of goals. Like, I rate Smith-Rowe very highly, but I think when you take the pressure off, young players sometimes perform a lot better. And when you put them under immense stress and immense pressure, they start doing things that they shouldn't be doing, or they overexert themselves or overcompensate. And then that's where the injuries come in, the burnout comes in, just, you know what I mean? And so I think the best thing for Emile Smith-Rowe in particular, because excuse me, he's really the one that I feel like we're projecting the most on. We need to bring in another 10, and not like a Willian type player, right? So that's kind of how I see it, because in order for Smith Rowe to play more for us in the future, he has to play less now. That's what I really believe. I'm 100% like, he just does not need to be starting every single game, right? We have a super chat here from Dubber Ducky saying, do you think the club should target an easy B or C target early in the window, more preseason, or wait for the A-star signing target on deadline day? That's a really good question. Hold on, you guys. I still need to plug this in. Oh my gosh, I'm so unprofessional. Give me one sec. Ah! I'm back. So, do you think the club should target an easy B or C? It's hard to say because I think there's only certain targets that you have that are just the only player that can improve you. I think it's very rare. I think like if you look at like Jadon Sancho for Manchester United, that is the only target. I don't think there can be a B or C, so you wait it out. For us in our situation in terms of like, let's say central midfield, right? I don't think there's a Jadon Sancho of the central midfield position for us that we should be waiting on until the very last minute, because I do think there are other players that could improve us if the deal is easier. It depends on the profile. It's if you're targeting like a world-class player, you have to get that guy. But if you're targeting a good player that fits the profile, and there's a couple of players that are at similar levels that have that profile, I think you can kind of just go for that anyway. So in terms of waiting on just one particular person and kind of leaving it late, I think for a team like Arsenal that has to get it done, I'm not sure if that's the best thing to do if it's not a world-class player that is the only one that can fill that position. There's a big difference for me between like waiting 2 years for Jadon Sancho and waiting until the last minute of the window for James Maddison when maybe you have an opportunity for Odegaard, because Leicester is not going, we would not, even if if we're really interested in James Maddison, we're not getting him until the deadline day. Like trust and believe, you know what I mean? So I think it depends on what level this player is at. And usually if they're a world-class player, they're the only one that can really fit that very specific profile at a specific level. But then when you're just looking to kind of build a foundation, because we're building a foundation right now, there are a lot of different players that can fill the positions that fit the profile. So I would say don't wait it out. Have a couple of different options. And if one looks like it's maybe impossible or the other team is unwilling to negotiate, I would just go ahead and get it done with the other players that can fit that. You know what I mean? Because there's very few players that I can see that they're like literally the only option, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So that's kind of my answer for that. Usopp put in a super chat. Thank you so much. Usopp says, all the Arteta hate, but he is doing a good job at getting our youngsters signed up and recruiting young talent that could bring big profits if it doesn't work out. Yeah, I mean, I guess is another thing off my checklist. Boop. Arteta out. Yeah. So look, if you're Arteta out, that's perfectly fine. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with thinking that Arteta's not the guy to get us where we want to be. And I don't necessarily feel like I've seen anything up until this point that makes me believe that it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to be a success at Arsenal, meaning that he's going to be able to get us where we want to go. But that being said, I'm not willing to put myself in I can't be that person where even if I thought that he was the worst coach, if he was doing things that were positive, I'm still going to give credit where credit is due. I see this moving the goalpost type thing going on with the fan base where if we do bad, it's all on Arteta. If we do good, it's just the players did their job, right? Or, Arteta is clearly quite good at convincing the young players that this is where they need to be. And if I'm really honest, I think the young players are the only ones that really matter at this point. And when I say young players, I mean like Tierney and Saka and ESR, Martinelli, because they're our future. And most of our older players are dead wood, if we're honest. You know what I mean? So he's doing a good job getting the players that matter signed up on new deals. But people seem to be acting as though that's not something that he's doing. So when something goes wrong or something is perceived to have went wrong, it's all Arteta, and then when something good is happening, we just act like it's not happening. So there's nothing wrong with thinking he's not the guy to take us, where we want to go, or thinking we need a more experienced manager with some trophies under his belt. Like, I get that. Like, that is totally acceptable. Like, I'm not saying that that's wrong, but at least still give him credit for what he's doing. Because for me, if he left tomorrow, the one thing that I would say that Arteta gave to us is he tore up some contracts and shifted on some players that desperately needed to go, that the club was just holding on to and letting those anchors drown us in the ocean. And we know what players I'm talking about, so I'm not going to go into detail. But that's one thing that he, under his, him being here, he made it his point to get rid of those players and then to re-sign our young players on longer deals to make sure that we secure our future. So, yeah, I think there is something to be said about what's happening on the pitch. I can't blame anybody for being upset about where we finished last season and the season prior, the type of football that we're playing. Let's not even act like it's entertaining or, we are still struggling. But that doesn't mean we have to go to that next extreme where we lose a preseason game and we're saying Arteta out. Whereas preseason is just about getting the legs going. Obviously, he had to start the Willians and all of them because the only way to get rid of players is to, one, show what they're doing or what kind of shape they're in. And obviously, Kolasinac and Willian are not in great shape for Arsenal, but there are other teams that would take them, maybe. So you have to let them play. And then also when you allow people to play and you don't just shut them out, it doesn't make it seem like these are players that you're desperate to get rid of, if that makes sense. If you sit somebody on your bench for let's say they don't play at all during preseason, don't expect to get high bids for players like that because it's obvious that you don't want them. If nobody pays a lot for things that people don't want, that's how sales work. So I think to blame Arteta for playing those players and then being upset that they're unable to shift some of these guys on. Besides Willian, most of these people and most of these players have been signed outside of his regime anyway. So I get about what's happening on the pitch, but little stuff not little, but losing our first preseason game, starting players that we need to get rid of. And you have to play them anyway. It's just a little much for me, so I think we're going to go through this though, to be honest. I don't actually think anything is going to change. I honestly feel like even if we're doing well, because there's so many people that are Arteta out and they're more concerned about being right than anything else, even if Arteta is showing good signs and we are improving and we bring in our targets, I just think we're too deep in our own shit at the moment that we're not going to be able to get out of it. So I would just say that this is just kind of how it's going to go until Arteta goes, because some people are just dead set on this guy. And some people are saying that they hate him, they wish bad on him, and it's just weird. It's a weird way to be honest. Let's see. I'm just waiting on it to pop up for some reason. It's just so slow, and I'm not sure why it's doing this to me. Sean is asking or saying, we sold Guendouzi because of bad attitude and stuff, and we signed the Benfica guy who is notorious for attitude issues. Your thoughts? There's a huge difference between so it's not just, so I think people have this misconception about Guendouzi that it was just because he was in Dubai taking his shirt off. It wasn't just that. It's more than that. He's just downright disrespectful. And he's been that way his entire career. I listened to or I watched one of FK's videos on Latte Firm, and he was talking to Henry Winter, and he was even saying that, and he's an outside perspective. He's not even an Arsenal fan, or, he's not really somebody that like has anything to gain, but he even said that he witnessed from his own eyes Guendouzi not listening to Arteta's instructions, like doing what he wanted to do on the pitch, coming off the pitch, not talking to the manager, just being downright disrespectful. So on top of the fact that he doesn't listen to instructions, he's disrespectful to the manager when he's on the pitch, he's also disrespectful off of the pitch. Whereas this guy, Tavares, like, I get that he had the moment, where he was on Instagram with his barber, whatever, saying that the barber said that he should be playing or whatever. Those are so different, and they're just vastly different levels of disrespect that it's just not similar in any way, shape, or form. So I think notorious for attitude issues is something that, you have to take it with a grain of salt. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he made a mistake, but is he on the pitch ignoring the manager, not taking his instructions, coming off the pitch with an attitude, not apologizing to the manager when it was just so easy to do that? It's Guendouzi was egregious. This guy made a mistake, and I know that the Benfica fans have been very vocal about not liking him or whatever. But if we had a young player, like let's say Bellerin, when he was like younger, 19 years old or whatever, came into the club and took a video with his barber saying that he should be starting over who was there at the time. Let's just say it was Sanya. I know that they probably didn't overlap or something. Somebody that we really loved. We would have a bad taste in our mouth about Bellerin, wouldn't we? Because it's a touchy subject. And I think Grimaldo is somebody that they quite like. So I just think they're vastly different situations, and notorious for attitude issues is something that you can definitely is aligned with who Guendouzi is. But Tavares, a video on Instagram with a barber saying, and the barber actually is the one saying that he should be starting over Grimaldo, and he just laughed, to me is not similar in any sort of way, to be honest, so there's just that. Don Giovanni says paying out contracts in full to players with 1 year left is not an accomplishment. It's not about it being an accomplishment. It's things that the club was not doing until Arteta made it clear that they needed to be doing it. I'm not saying that it's a hard thing to do. And I still think that we're just printing out their contracts in front of them and going like this and tearing it and saying, go on your way. So it's not that easy. But what I'm saying is that these are things that were never even addressed before Arteta came in, and don't even act for a second like Unai Emery would have pushed for these things to get done. Edu and Arteta made it their job to move these guys on, and they may still be here if they had not done anything. So it's not about it being an accomplishment. It's addressing very obvious issues that were not only being ignored, but were being compounded. Like, they were just letting it happen. Like, there's huge elephants in the room always with Arsenal and these bad players that are on huge wages, and they're trying to get rid of that, so I'm not saying that they should get a medal for it. I'm just saying, and also I still think, again, that we're thinking that their jobs are so easy, but it's actually not. But they've addressed things that other regimes have acted like isn't happening. So I can say that I am happy that Arteta and Edu have addressed the Mesut Ozils, the Mustafis, trying to move Kolasinac on. I know it's difficult, but they're trying to. Socrates as well. It's just, none of that was getting done under Raul, you guys. He was actually making it worse. Let's see. What you guys are saying? Oh, Bowie Cat says, has Thomas been practicing free kicks? I don't know. But the shot that he took looked a lot better. Oh, I thought the internet went out. His shot looked a lot better, so hopefully he has, but I'm not really concerned about his free kick taking or his shot abilities or whatever. I mean, it's a, you know, I would like him to be better at it, but I just need him to be fit and get up to speed. I thought he looked, maybe he was just a little shell shocked when he first came into the Premier League because the pace is quite different than La Liga. So although I hope that he's not kicking the ball into the stratosphere anymore. I'm more concerned about him getting up to speed, staying fit, you know, those types of things, and having consistent performances day in and day out versus like the shots and stuff, because I know that that's not really going to be his bag. Like he'll probably score like 1 or 2 goals for us a season, if that, you know what I mean? That's just not his thing, but hopefully he has. Dubber Ducky says, I'm sorry, it's taking forever, but is Partey a box to box? Yes, he is. But he's somebody that can play in multiple formations and different tactical schemes. So when people are like, oh, he's a CDM, I completely understand why they think that. It's because he can play as the deepest lying midfielder in front of the back four / whatever kind of setup you have going on. But he's not best suited for it because he's not great in the sprint. Thomas is not sprinty, and once you get by him, you're pretty much by him. I love the guy, but that's one of his shortcomings is he's just not, he's not slow, but he's not sprinty enough to be the furthest back, because if you want to push a little bit more forward and you get past him, it's kind of like he kind of dives in, goes all in on a tackle to try to make sure that he's in a good spot. And then if he gets beat, it's kind of over. So I think he's best as a box-to-box midfielder. I've said this so many times on the channel that what he said from his mouth is that he wants to be Yaya Toure and Michael Essien mixed together. And playing under Simeone, he was never really able to really show his offensive capabilities. And really at Arsenal, we only really saw it on the last game of the season. So he's not an Aaron Ramsey box to box type of player. Like he's not going to be that ghosting into the box, but what he has is the ability to he can go box to box, and he can be the pass before the pass. That's kind of his thing. So I do think he's better as a box to box, you know, but he can play as the deepest line, but you have to be really careful with that. It has to be lower level competition, in my opinion. Like, we know we're going to have 60% of possession or more. You know, it's not, I would not want to see Thomas Partey there against Man City. I wouldn't. Like that would scare the crap out of me. But against a Fulham type team or something like that, like, yeah, because you know you're going to have possession. You know, he did okay in that role last season, but I think maybe Odegaard and Smith Rowe left him out to dry a little bit. Ceballos left him out to dry when we played that way. So it also depends on who's around him. But I'd prefer him as a box to box, if I'm really honest. C. Wilder says high speed but low acceleration. It's hard to describe, because I'm not saying that he's like Xhaka immobile. When I'm just saying, like, if you look at somebody like Basuma, his recovery pace is quite good. So even if you bypass him, he can catch up and get a tackle in. That is so not Thomas. Once they're past him, he's kind of gone. Like, you know what I mean? So it is what it is. Yeah, he's kind of like Camavinga in a way. Like, you know, I can see that, you know, but Camavinga is quite dribbly, you know, and I think Thomas is more passy. I think Thomas has more, and maybe Camavinga will grow into being more like Thomas. But what I like about Camavinga is at a young age, they have allowed him to be more progressive and he's more of a modern box to box CDM type player. Whereas I think Thomas has been really limited in what he's been able to do. So now that at an older age, he's trying to be more, it's going to be difficult for him to come out of his shell a little bit. Like, it's like when you don't use the skills, they kind of go away. So he has to kind of warm up a little bit. Whereas Camavinga's always been able to do that. He's never really played in a pivot like that, not in a traditional pivot. So I think once he gets older, like, he's going to be so difficult to handle because he already has that ability to kind of push himself forward and do more. I saw a long question here from Don Giovanni. Let me see if I can catch it. Okay, Don says, I think some of Gabriel's relative struggles were due to lack of communication between him plus Holding. Do you think we might use Marie White as starting partnership because they can communicate better? Let's see. Do I think? Yes. So I definitely agree with that first part of the statement. One of the biggest issues with Gabriel and Holding is that Gabriel doesn't know, they don't communicate. Obviously, there's a language barrier issue there. And I also think that both of them are kind of used to being the follower in the partnership, and they both need somebody kind of leading them, a little bit. Like, I think when it's Marie and Holding, Marie is definitely the leader back there. When it was Gabrielle and Louise was definitely the leader. So when you have two followers, and then you also have the language barrier there. And to be quite honest, I think both of them are not the ball playing defender. It just, none of it really works. If we do, we will end up using Marie and White if White signs first, because Gabrielle is injured. So we'll probably see that anyway right off the bat. Will it progress throughout the season? I wouldn't be surprised if it did. Towards the end of the season, you could kind of see that Arteta was leaning towards Marie in some of those bigger games, and Gabrielle was playing in the league. It worried me a little bit. I'm not sure if maybe Arteta doesn't rate Gabrielle's ball playing ability. I think I overestimated it. I thought when he came in, he was a lot better on the ball than he had ended up being. He needs to improve, his passing and his possession and those types of things. But I understand he's the more defender in the partnership, most likely. But it does worry me just a little bit that I don't feel like Arteta is set on Gabrielle. It feels like he likes Marie a little bit more than I would like him to, because I don't actually think Marie is that great. So, you guys, I wouldn't be surprised if a left-sided center back comes in sooner rather than we actually anticipate if Arteta is still here, because it's something about Gabrielle that I just don't think he's really feeling. But we will see Marie plus either Holding or White if he signs right after the beginning, because Gabrielle's not there. And in terms of communication, it might be a better fit. So let's see what happens. But yeah, Marie and White doesn't make me happy. I like Gabrielle a lot better than Marie, but it just doesn't feel like Arteta's feeling him, if that makes sense. Okay, we want to talk about Pepe real quick. Let me just make sure. So also, before I just get off of the whole Ben White, Marie thing, it's so weird because just like earlier today, I saw something that, a report that said that the White deal will get done in the next couple of weeks because now the Euros are over. And then somebody who's quite close to Brighton has said that they're not keen on selling White. I really think Brighton is trying to get more money out of us. And again, this is what happens when you're dealing with a club that's not necessarily desperate to sell. You do have to kind of play the game a little bit. And it feels like Brighton's either trying to wait for somebody else to come in to drive the price up, or they're just doing whatever's necessary to try to prolong the deal and try to get a couple more million out of it. I still think White will be an Arsenal player. I haven't seen anything concrete to make me think anything different, but I just wanted to put that out there just in case you've seen the report that they're saying that they're not really keen on selling him, so, and what Arsenal would have to pay would be nonsensical or something like that, but I still expect him to come. I think he's set on it anyway. And this would be the second time that Brighton would stop him from making a move that he really wants to do. So I think he would push quite hard. If we know like White wanted to stay at Leeds and Brighton made him come back and he was not happy about that. So I think if he really wants the move, he'll push it and we'll get it done. But C. Finnan says, do you think that Pepe will get dropped more for Saka? I am a little bit worried about this, if I'm honest, because I really like Pepe. He's really grown on me a lot in the last couple of months. At the end of the season, he really grew on me. I think more, not really just his performances, but just you could see that he was putting in the hard work. And he has a special type of talent that I feel like if we use it correctly, he could be really good for us in a team that really just does not score enough goals. He is a goal scorer and we kind of need him to play. The issue is that he's competing for a spot with Bukayo Saka. So that makes it so difficult because you know that Bukayo is going to start like no matter what, because Arteta just loves him so much. And I can't really say that he doesn't deserve the spot. And then when you look at Pepe, I think he is good off of the left, but I think Arteta prefers inverted wingers. And I think that's why, you know, the likes of Martinelli and ESR will be more likely to play off of that left-hand side. So that means there's a decision to be made, you know, and I don't really like that. If it was up to me, I would play Saka and Pepe, and I would just let them switch sides. Or I would start Saka off of the left and because I would just imagine them switching sides anyway. But also, if you get Smith Rowe on a long-term deal, you kind of have to also placate him a little bit. And if you bring in a 10, then the way to do that is to play him off of the left. And then you have the issue with Martinelli as well, who I don't really think has solidified himself as a central forward at the moment, but will also need playing time. So we're in a little bit of a pickle. But in terms of Pepe, I do worry about him being dropped next season. And maybe that would lead to us selling him on. I'm not really sold on the fact that Pepe is going to be a long-term Arsenal player. We may be just trying to fatten him up for sale. But I would like to see him start games next season. I would like to see him and Saka both start. I think they're our most dangerous our most dangerous forwards when they're playing behind the striker. But I do think he'll get dropped. I do, because Saka is clearly Arteta's favorite, you know, and that comes into play with managers all the time, even if we don't rate it or we don't understand it. That's just kind of how it goes. But Pepe does have a really good opportunity in preseason and in the beginning of the season to really stake his claim in the Premier League, because Saka won't be here because he'll be resting, you know, after playing in the Euros. So he does have opportunity to really push to be like, hey, like you can't really be dropping me. And the way he looked yesterday leads me to believe that he does want to push for his spot. He looked bright. He looked like he had his head screwed on. So I am worried. Just a little bit, because once you take Pepe out, it takes him a minute to kind of get going. And I don't want his confidence to get shot down. But again, if you're fighting for a spot against basically the favorite, it's difficult, isn't it? You know, so we'll see what happens. Tony says KT has to start versus Rangers. Well, Tavares will be ready to play against Rangers, I think. So it's hard to gauge. I would actually prefer Tavares to play, and because we know what KT is going to give us anyway. But KT won't want to sit out against Rangers, will he? So we'll see. But I'm more interested in seeing what Tavares has going on than because I already know what Kieran Tierney is going to give us. Roshan says Sam Johnstone is on Arsenal's radar, reports David Ornstein. I'm so tired of the goalkeeper situation. I'm sick. The last 2 seasons have been all goalkeeper conversations, and just pick a guy and just move on. Like, you know what I mean? So Sam Johnstone, I mean, is he coming in as a number 2? What's going on with Leno? Like, it just is what it is. It just feels like we're spending so much time on the goalkeepers, and it's actually getting on my nerves now. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm so dead when it comes to the goalkeepers. I just feel like just do something. Yeah, you guys are reporting it. So annoying. Isn't he? What is he, like 28 years old? Played for West Brom. Went to the Euros, didn't he? Or did he just miss out on it? Was he there? I don't really have much to say on it. Goalkeepers are just not my jam. Not my jam, So let's see. You guys, more questions. More like I've got 10 more minutes. And I want to do some more questions. Let me roll back up because you guys may have said them and I missed them. Yes, we did cover Willian's waistline, you guys. I can't do it. It's so funny. It's not supposed to be funny, but it is to me because he looked so bad. Him and Kolasinac looked so hefty, like it was actually pathetic. They just sat on their butts because they probably thought that their moves were going to go through and they kind of both fell through at the same time. It's just hilarious. I have to laugh now. I just refuse to be miserable about this freaking team. Usopp says, where do you think we will finish this season? Man, I mean, of course we're going to do like a whole prediction show like before the season starts because it's hard to know without knowing what players we're going to have. But I would say with what we have right now, which is essentially what we had when we finished the season, I would say 6th or 7th. I think we were on an upward trajectory. I do think we looked better towards the end of the season. But again, here we go. Fans back in the stands. More pressure. Our team doesn't like pressure. We started to play a lot better once the pressure was off. And I really think that that's a mental issue with this team. So I would say based on who we have at the moment and what I saw last season, I would say 6th or 7th, but we're not quite there. We definitely need to bring in more players. And, once Xhaka's, thing goes through, I know he'll be a Roma player. I'm not really worried about it. But once it goes through, then we'll know what the central midfield is going to look like, who's going to be next to Thomas. And then we'll figure out what's going to go on with the 10. I'm not really worried about the wide forwards because we have so many good options there. We have Martinelli, Pepe, Saka, ESR. But what I am worried about is the striker situation. Just a little bit yesterday kind of gave me like oh gosh, like what's actually happening? And if Aubameyang can't get 20-something goals next season, I'm worried. I am. I'm a little bit worried. I didn't like the way he looked yesterday. I'm not going to hold it against him. I'm going to try to be positive and see what happens in the next couple of weeks. But he looked like he was starting the way he ended last season. It didn't look good. It didn't look great. Let's see. Dubber Ducky says, if we don't get a 10, can I see Arteta going with a 4-3-3? Well, if we don't get a 10, yeah, maybe. I still think we're a 4-2-3-1. I really do. I just don't think we have it in us just yet. We don't have enough well-rounded midfielders. We need 2 more to play in that way, in my opinion. So maybe, but I still think we'll bring one in. The only way that happens is if we end up bringing in a WAR. That's what I think. If you bring in a WAR, I think you are going to a 4-3-3. If not, right away, we'll slowly transition. But I think we're going to get a 10 because I just think we're a 4-2-3-1 team until we see otherwise. You know what I mean? Is there any chance we sell Willian? Not looking the way he looked. Not looking the way he looked. Yeah, he looked so bad. Like, he's not doing a good job, like, marketing himself. I think we'd have to give him away for free. But even his wages are an issue. We'll see what happens. Yeah, nobody wants Willian. Stu says Ruben Neves or Cacaret could be the point of the diamond. I'm actually not too fussed about Ruben Neves as other people are. I know there's a huge section of the fan base that's like, he's not an upgrade on Granite. But I do think that there is legs to us being interested in Locatelli. And if you're willing to, kind of test the waters and see what Locatelli is all about, see if you'd be interested to come to the club, and that's obviously your first choice, then I can't see us going for Basuma because they're not actually similar in any way, shape, or form. Whereas Neves is quite similar to Granite similar to Locatelli. Like, they're all that similar deep-lying playmaker type guy, more of a passer than a ball progressor in terms of dribbling. Not really a destroyer, more of a passer, more of a regista type player. So I can see it. I don't know enough about Cacaret, if I'm completely honest. But for Ruben Neves, I can see him playing at the base of the midfield with Thomas and somebody else playing in the 10 role. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I haven't seen enough of Cacaret to really say yes, that makes a lot of sense. Mags says, how many games do we think Arteta will last? I'm going to be really honest with you guys. I don't think, even if let's think about it this way. We play Man City and Chelsea in the first 5 games of the season. So I think I've seen some people say if we lose if we don't win our first 5 games, or we don't win most of the first couple of games, he's gone. I don't see that, to be honest. And then we have an easier run, I think, in November. So we'll see. But I don't think he's anywhere near leaving. I really, really don't. And I just think people will be calling for his head right after the Manchester City game, if and when we lose. He's not going anywhere. You still have to allow, we have to remember that the transfer window closes on August 31st. So I believe that, the season will have already started. Wouldn't it have? Yeah. So they'll still give him time, to get things going, so we'll see. But I'm actually I'm not anxious to see him fail and get him out. I'm more interested, I would prefer Arteta to be the guy and for us to progress and be a much better team next season, even though I know that there's a big part of the fan base that no matter what he does, they want him out. And I'm more I would much prefer him to just be better, because going through a manager's change is just not really what I feel like. I think we need stability. So I just prefer him to, just to get us where we want to go, at least get us close to it, Kurumi is saying that Arsenal is linked with everybody. It's a red flag. Well, I mean, I could say that we're linked with somebody, to be honest. You know what I mean? Some links are stronger than others. Some are just complete bullshit. Some of that's just agent talk, so I wouldn't necessarily say that that's a red flag for Arsenal. I would just say that we're used a lot to get other things to go people's ways, agents, players, to hurry things along. So it's not the club's fault that they're linked with so many players. Some of it's just absolute crap. You know what I mean? And some of it's smoke screens. You know what I mean? Austin says, what manager would you prefer? I don't know. You know what I mean? Man. I just don't know. I tell you this right now, even though I think Conte is an amazing manager, I just don't think with the amount of young players that we have that he'd actually be a good choice for us, because we have a young team that needs a manager that knows how to deal with young players. So everybody's calling for Conte, and I'm like, he would throw all of our young players in the bin. Like, what he wants to do is go get older, more established players and bring them in. And although I think some fans would really like that, I actually don't prefer that. I want a manager that cares about our young players and will help them grow and, that kind of thing. So maybe I don't even know. I like Jesse Marsh, to be honest, but I know you guys don't want an American manager. I know that would just kill you, wouldn't it? But I do like Jesse Marsh because he deals with young players and does quite a good job with them. I also like, let me just make sure I get his name right, Ten Hag, because again, young players is something that they have to deal with at Ajax. So I would want a manager that would know how to use the resources that we have at the club already and be able to add to it and make it better versus somebody that's going to say, oh, you got all these 20-year-olds, let's get rid of them or just shove them in the academy or whatever. That would really upset me. Yeah, Nagelsmann would be a good choice. I like that he's tactically flexible. I think being able to play different ways and not be stuck in one way is a good way to win and to be successful in the modern game. And Nagelsmann is definitely perfect for that. I can't wait to see what he does at Bayern. I think he's going to be really, really good. So we'll see. But yeah, Nagelsmann would have been a good choice. It's so hard for me to think about managers right now because I'm just trying to. I really would prefer Arteta to just get it right because I think we need stability at the club at the moment. RJ says thoughts on Laka and Balogun. I think Balogun is going to be a problem. I really do. The guy is so confident. You could just see confidence just oozes off of him, and the best strikers are narcissists. They are so about themselves. They're so confident, almost arrogant. And he definitely has that about him. I thought he looked really good in the preseason game. Not necessarily obviously he didn't score a hat trick or anything like that. But I thought just his initial hold up play, his ability to turn his man and drive forward, and the fact that he would take the shots I like that. I want to see our young players say, actually, I rate myself enough to take the shot, and I'm not just going to defer to Aubameyang and Lacazette because, we need them to be able to, get going. So I actually really like Balogun, but my issue is just if Lacazette goes, then do I feel like he's going to get the amount of goals necessary if Aubameyang comes short? I'm not necessarily sure. And I kind of would prefer Balogun to get a whole season starting games somewhere. I prefer him to get a loan, if I'm honest. Not because I don't want to see him at the club. It's because I want him to be good for us next season. And I think that would take 30 games under his belt somewhere where he can get knocked around a little bit, really grow into himself away from the pressure of Arsenal. So I do really like Balogun. And I think that he'll be the perfect mix of Aubameyang and Lacazette, which is really what we need. Lacazette needs to go. The longer the window goes, the more I'm thinking I really want him to go. Not because I don't like him, but I just think having him and Aubameyang just doesn't suit us at the moment. I think we need to streamline our attackers into something that makes more sense. I would love for Willian and Lacazette to go. They're both on very high wages, and I don't think either of them really give us, well, we know Willian doesn't give us what we need, but I don't think Lacazette really does it for us. And because we've given the contract to Aubameyang and neither of them they don't really work together either, I just feel like I really want Lacazette to go, but ultimately when you let somebody get this far down into their contract, you're kind of at their mercy. And I don't really see many clubs coming in to take him off of our hands at his age and on his wages. That being said, There are teams that are interested in him. Lyon and Monaco in particular, I think, are interested in him. And they may be waiting until the very end of the transfer window to bring him in, because as soon as you bring him in, you have to start paying his wages. So it's actually smarter for a club to wait until the freaking last minute, so you don't actually have to waste those resources if you're not playing games. But if he does go, I believe it'll be at the very end of the window, but I can definitely see him staying, even though I'd prefer him to go. That being said, if he does stay, I think Balogun needs to go on loan so that he could be good for us. Like, he's no good for us sitting behind Martinelli and Lacazette and Aubameyang with no Europe. You know what I mean? I would love to see Balogun go to like Watford or one of the teams coming up and really get going, you know? Tawanda said, who would I like to be Lacazette's replacement then? In my opinion, it's so tough, not because I don't really know what style we're going for. I kind of feel like I know, but I don't really know, if that makes sense. You know, I don't know if Arteta's just dealing with what he has, or he actually prefers somebody like Lacazette. Like, Lacazette fits better with the pieces that we have, but if Arteta had his choice, would this be what he wanted? But you know, not really knowing what our style of play is, really, it hasn't really been cemented. It's hard for me to know. And there's a huge gap in strikers right now. Number nines, there's not a lot of options that really suit what Arsenal need in terms of experience levels and stuff like that. So you have your top level, like a Haaland, who's somebody that we're not going to get. And then you have that next level under, where I think you'd have to almost overpay to get them, somebody like an Isak, you know? So if I had to choose, just from what I've seen from certain players, I think I would go for Isak, just because I feel like he's different. But I also like Dominic Calvert-Lewin too, even though I know we'd have to pay top dollar for him. But it's just, we need a physical presence in the box. We need somebody that could kind of, we need somebody who's not afraid to get stuck in. We need somebody who's not afraid to let the ball hit their head. There's a bunch of things that I just feel like our strikers just don't really give us. And Alexander Isak in particular has the ability to be really good in build-up, but also score goals. He's really fast. He's physical, but he's not really he's not going to give you that physical presence that Dominic Calvert-Lewin does, but maybe he can grow into it a little bit more. But he's definitely not worth what it would take for us to bring him in, 60, 70 million. So you're basically paying to hope that he becomes something really good. So it's really hard to say, because I just think the number nines that are available in Europe at the moment are not really that much better than what we already have, meaning Martinelli and Balogun. So I almost hope that it would be both of them, or one of them could step up into that position and replace Lacazette, because I don't really like the options that are out there. Like Edouard, he's good, but now that I've seen Isak, I'm like, no, we don't really need him. Who else is really there? You know what I mean? As a really good number 9, they're really not there, are they? So, yeah. Yeah, and I know that some people are like, Danny Ings. I see him and people are laughing. If we were just a striker away, and we had Aubameyang and we could bring him in to replace Lacazette, I might take the risk, depending on what Southampton wanted. No more than 30 million. But I think if you're looking for somebody to score goals, physical presence, knows the league, and you just needed somebody to kind of complete your project, he would be a good choice. But in terms of building foundations, he's not a good pick, because obviously injury record, and he's a little bit on the older side. But I do like Danny Ings. I just think that there's a lot of buts attached with that. RJ says, can Pepe play number 9? Yes, he can, as a false number 9 type of player, but I've yet to see Arteta try it. And when he had the opportunity to try it, he pushed Smith Rowe there. So I'm not sure if he would really want that, but I would actually want to see Pepe play that role at least once, just one time to see what it looked like, you know, just to see. Yeah. Last comment. Banky says Laka's the only senior player striker who seems to have really good chemistry with the young players in games, letting him go when we are not financially buoyant and unsure what we get from Balogun sounds sus. Well, the issue is I don't really want to lose him for free. And I know that he's the only one that has really good chemistry, but I still think one of those strikers needs to go, just from a squad building perspective, from a wow, we're wasting a lot of wages perspective. If you could go back in time, you'd probably just sell Aubameyang and keep Lacazette, but we can't do that now. And having both of them on our wage bill and neither of them are really hitting the marks, like, I just feel like Lacazette just needs to go because he's also taking up playing time for players that need it, you know, like our Martinellis and our Balogun. So I get that aspect of it, but let's be real. Aubameyang's going to start a lot of games next season. So is it worth having Lacazette there just in case? I don't think so. Like, you know, that's just me. Yeah. All right, guys, that's going to be it for today. We kind of went over everything. Yeah, we did pretty much. The only thing that we really didn't talk about was Willick. I just wanted to see what you guys were kind of thinking about that. We're going to loan him out to Newcastle. That's pretty much what's going on with that. And people are not happy about it, which I completely understand, because we're kind of hoping that he would be sold. But for me, the reality with Willick is just, if they're not going to offer us what we want for him, I don't think we should be shoving him out of the door. I understand like his value will never be higher, but if nobody's coming in for him at 25 million, then why would we sell? I do kind of wish we'd wait a little bit longer to see if somebody gets desperate and throws out a $20 million bid, but it looks like we're just going to go ahead and get it done now. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But yeah. All right, I'll be back tomorrow. We'll see what happens. Hopefully something actually happens so I can actually have a constructive show and not just do Q&As all the time, but you guys seem to really enjoy them. So, and I enjoy talking to you guys. So make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Share this with a friend, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye, guys. Thank you.